In the spring of 1950, something impossible seemed to be drifting through the silence of near-Earth space. Imagine looking up at the night sky at the dawn of the Cold War. The technology of the era is defined by vacuum tubes, heavy analog machinery, and propeller planes. Human beings have not yet reached orbit. Sputnik has not yet launched. The official space age has not begun. And yet, high above the clouds, on old photographic plates from one of the world's great observatories, the sky appears to blink. Points of light. Brief. Brilliant. Gone. This is not a conspiracy theory born in the dark corners of the internet. This is an anomaly found in astronomical archives, frozen in time on sheets of glass. 7 years before the Soviet Union shocked the world by launching Sputnik 1, astronomers at Palomar Observatory captured transient points of light that some researchers argue look disturbingly similar to sunlight reflecting from objects near Earth. If they were objects at all. That is the entire mystery. Were these flashes dust, scratches, chemical defects, or plate contamination? Or did astronomers accidentally photograph something reflective moving above Earth before humanity officially entered space? Who put it there? More importantly, what was it watching? For decades, we have comforted ourselves with the grand filter of distance. We tell ourselves that if there is other intelligent life in this vast cosmos, it is trapped behind walls of light years and cosmic time. They are out there, safely distant, too far to touch us, too far to interfere. But what if that comfort is wrong? What if the barrier has already been breached? What if the most terrifying realization is not that we are alone, but that we may have been sharing our immediate celestial backyard with something silent, observant, and patient since the very beginning of our modern age? Enter Dr. Beatriz Villarroel, an astrophysicist and researcher who refused to look away from the margins of science. As a leader of the VASCO project, Vanishing and Appearing Sources during a century of observations, Villarroel was not looking for aliens. She was looking for vanishing stars. Her team compared modern digital sky surveys with historic photographic plates captured by observatories in the late 1940s and 1950s. They wanted to find celestial objects that were clearly documented decades ago but have since vanished from the sky. Stars that should still be there. Points of light that disappeared without a supernova, without a known explanation, without a trace. They found strange candidates. But buried within those fragile old plates, another mystery emerged. On one photographic plate from 1959, distinct points of light appeared. They were not seen 30 minutes earlier. They were gone on later images. In astronomy, these are known as transients, fleeting flashes in the dark. Immediately, skepticism kicked in. Were they asteroids, flaring galaxies, high-altitude aircraft, plate defects, dust, scratches, chemical contamination? Some conventional explanations struggled to fit all the details. The flashes appeared too briefly for ordinary stars. They did not match simple asteroid motion. And if nuclear test contamination was responsible, the timing did not fit cleanly for that specific plate. Then came the unsettling possibility. If the points were not defects, one possible interpretation was sunlight reflecting from highly reflective surfaces near Earth. Brief glints, fast, silent, metallic-looking, just like satellites. But the date on the plate was 1950, 7 years before Sputnik, before NASA, before the official dawn of human orbit. The simplest explanation should be dust, scratches, or chemical defects on old glass plates. But the deeper the VASCO team looked, the harder that answer became to accept. Some of the flashes did not behave like random damage. They appeared in patterns. They showed correlations. They seemed to disappear where Earth's shadow should have blocked sunlight from reflective objects. And if that interpretation is correct, then the conclusion is almost impossible to ignore. Something reflective may have been moving near Earth before Sputnik, before NASA, before the official beginning of the space age. And if those objects were real, then only two explanations remain. Either human history is missing a secret chapter, or something that was not ours was already here. The scientific community reacted with predictable caution. A single plate with 9 glints is not proof. It could be a fluke. It could be contamination. It could be a scanner artifact. It could be a tiny flaw in 70-year-old glass. To prove a claim this monumental, you do not need a mystery. You need data. You need numbers. You need a statistical hammer. So Villarroel's team went deeper. They analyzed years of Palomar plates spanning from 1949 to 1957. What they uncovered was staggering. More than 100,000 candidate transients, over 100,000 brief points of light appearing in the old sky archive. But how do you separate cosmic noise, camera defects, and atmospheric illusions from actual physical objects near Earth? You use the geometry of the solar system itself. If these flashes were just chemical defects on photographic plates, scratches in glass, or distant cosmic sources, they should be scattered more randomly across the sky. Earth's shadow should not matter. But if some of them were real reflective objects near Earth, then they would have to obey the laws of light. Every time an orbiting object passes into Earth's shadow, it loses sunlight. No sunlight, no reflection, no glint. It goes dark. It vanishes. Villarroel's team mapped the coordinates of the transients and looked for that shadow effect. The reported result was mind-blowing. A subset of the detections appeared to show a reduction where Earth's shadow should have blocked reflections. If that shadow deficit holds up, it would suggest that at least some flashes behaved like sunlight reflecting from physical objects near Earth. Not random defects, not distant galaxies. Objects, reflective, moving, and possibly present before humanity's first official satellite. They were not proof, but they were not easy to dismiss. Then the story became even more uncomfortable. The team looked for patterns in time. They compared transient detections with historical events on Earth, and some analyses reported statistical correlations between these flashes, public UAP reports, and dates near atmospheric nuclear tests. That does not prove intelligence. It does not prove surveillance. It does not prove non-human technology. But it raises a question that is difficult to ignore. Why would flashes on old astronomical plates appear more often around the same historical windows when humanity was testing nuclear weapons and reporting strange objects in the sky? Maybe the answer is observational bias. Maybe more plates were taken during those periods. Maybe the archive is contaminated by the habits, instruments, and limitations of human observers. Or maybe something physical was happening in the sky, and we still do not understand what it was. And this is where the story touches one of the strangest patterns in modern UAP history. For decades, military witnesses have claimed that unidentified objects showed an eerie interest in nuclear weapons sites. Some accounts describe objects appearing near missile fields. Others describe incidents where nuclear systems malfunctioned during alleged sightings. These cases remain disputed. They are not clean proof. They are not settled history. But they form a pattern that refuses to die. One often cited case involves F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Wyoming in 2010, where a major communications failure affected dozens of Minuteman III missiles. Official explanations pointed to a technical fault, but UFO researchers have linked the incident to witness claims of unusual aerial activity near missile fields. Another often cited case comes from Soviet-era accounts in Ukraine, where witnesses allegedly reported a disc-shaped object near an ICBM base and a terrifying malfunction inside the launch control system. According to those accounts, the systems briefly entered an unauthorized launch sequence before returning to normal. Again, these are disputed claims. But when placed beside the VASCO correlations, they become part of a larger question. If something anomalous was present near Earth before the space age, why would it appear more often around the birth of the atomic era? Were these flashes nothing more than artifacts of old glass and human imagination? Or were they signs of surveillance, a reconnaissance presence, a silent observer, a system watching as humanity learned how to split the atom and threaten itself with extinction? But this is science, not a Hollywood movie. And in science, extraordinary claims are not protected by drama. They are attacked, measured, dismantled, tested. When Villarroel and her collaborators published their findings, skeptics pushed back hard. And they had good reasons. Old photographic plates are dangerous evidence. Dust can imitate a star. A scratch can become a transient. A defect in photographic emulsion can look like a point of light. A scanner artifact can turn a tiny imperfection into something that seems astronomical. A major critique argued that digitized scans are not enough. If you want to know whether a point of light was truly in the sky, you may need to inspect the original glass plate under a microscope. Because a 70-year-old plate does not just preserve the universe, it preserves damage, chemistry, decay, human handling, time itself. Critics also challenged the nuclear test correlation. They argued that observatory schedules, exposure frequency, and selection effects could create the illusion of a pattern. Maybe more flashes appeared near nuclear test windows simply because more plates were taken. Maybe the sky did not change. Maybe our sampling did. And when stricter filters were applied, some critics argued that the signal weakened or disappeared. Without the shadow effect, there is no strong evidence for objects near Earth. Without reliable correlations, there is no connection to nuclear testing. Without physical confirmation, the alien satellite hypothesis becomes what skeptics say it always was: dust, glass, noise, and wishful thinking. But the battle did not end there. Villarroel and her team pushed back. They argued that the strictest filters may remove the very phenomena being studied. They argued that the correlations remain interesting even after accounting for some observational effects. They argued that the archive deserves deeper investigation, not dismissal. And that is where the mystery still lives. Not in certainty, in tension. One side sees contamination, bias, and old plates being asked to carry impossible weight. The other sees patterns, shadows, and glints that behave too much like sunlight reflecting from something real. The simplest explanation should be ordinary. But the data keeps whispering something uncomfortable. Something may have been up there, and if it was there before Sputnik, before astronauts, before human satellites, before the world admitted that orbit was reachable. So where does that leave us? Are the transients of the 1950s the smoking gun of a non-human intelligence orbiting our world before we ever learn to escape our own gravity? Or are they simply the ghostly artifacts of 70-year-old glass, dust, chemical decay, and our own hunger to find meaning in the dark? The truth is, we may never know for certain. Today, Earth orbit is no longer quiet. It is crowded with satellites, rocket bodies, fragments of debris, spent hardware, and commercial constellations. If there was once something silent and ancient hiding above us, it would now be buried inside our own technological noise, perfectly camouflaged by the mess we created. But the questions raised by the VASCO project refuse to disappear. We have spent centuries imagining first contact as something that happens in the future, a signal, a landing, a message, a moment when the universe finally answers us. But perhaps the stranger possibility is that the first sign did not arrive tomorrow. Perhaps it was already there, on old glass, in forgotten archives, in brief points of light that appeared before the space age and vanished before anyone knew what they might mean. Perhaps as we took our first steps into the atomic era, playing with forces we barely understood, something older, smarter, and infinitely more patient was already looking down, waiting, watching, and counting the glints in the shadow of the Earth. Subscribe to Cosmos and hit the bell so you never miss what we uncover next. And if you want to keep going, watch the next video on your screen now, and grab your free guidebook from the description below.